She's like a sickness in my brain, a vision standing by the window pane. She ripples through the blinds and leaves me in a daze. It's in the way her body moves me, the way she grabs me and intoxicates, until the signals in my mind forget to operate. Pressure in your fragile skull, I take my pleasure from my alcohol. She'll never give you any time at all. She just comes and goes, you know, and
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and thank you for joining me for another coffee and crime time. I've actually gotten multiple requests to cover this case. It's a more current case, sort of ongoing, even though we know what happened. And I understand why people asked me to talk about it. It's absolutely horrific and heartbreakingly sad. I think it's the epitome of a pointless tragedy. But I will say that I do believe there's something to learn from what happened to 34-year-old Eliza Fletcher. There's some broader topics to discuss, topics about the justice system, the legal system, the processing of DNA, things like that. And honestly, I think there's a lot to talk about here. And I also think that Eliza would appreciate that because she was a teacher who, according to her obituary, nurtured and cared for her students with her whole heart. She believed in the importance of personal growth, and she wasn't afraid to be vulnerable. So I think that Eliza, from what I know about her and from what people say about her, how she's described, she seems like the type of person who would really want everyone to learn something from what happened to her. But before we dive into the case, let's have a word from the sponsor of today's video, Harlowe Fresh. Now it's September, it's the end of September. Do you have a busy schedule this fall? I know that I do. Between the kids being back to school, which means they got homework at night, and they got their sports. Bella's doing dance and soccer. Aiden's doing basketball. So every night it feels like something's going on. Plus, I'm getting ready for Halloween, and then in October, I'm starting Halloween. It's my busiest month. I'm not going to have a lot of free time on my hands. And the last thing I want to do is go grocery shopping, meal prep, and spend a ton of time cooking during the week. I love cooking slowly and luxuriously on the weekend, but during the week, I ain't got time for it. HelloFresh has me covered with a weekly selection of 30-plus recipes and 70-plus convenience items, all delivered to my front door. Using HelloFresh saves me time because I don't have to go food shopping, and with their easy-to-follow, foolproof recipes, I can have dinner on the table in less than 30 minutes. I also love that HelloFresh works with my schedule because there are certain weeks that I'm traveling and I'm not going to be home at all, or weeks where the kids are out at their evening activities, so it's just me and my husband for dinner. HelloFresh allows me to change my meal preferences, my delivery dates. I can modify the amount of servings I get, so a few times during the week I'll have meals for the whole family, and a few times during the week I'll have meals for just two. And if I need to skip a week because I'm out of town, they can accommodate that as well. It's really all about what works for you, your family, and your schedule. They even have a line of kid-friendly recipes for picky eaters, although I will say my kids are very picky, but I always make them try a bite of whatever I get from HelloFresh, and they always love it. We just made the bruschetta chicken this past Monday. It was so freaking good. So crispy, so flavorful, so delicious. I was really hoping the kids would not like it as much as they did so that I could eat their leftovers, and there weren't any leftovers to eat. I'll just say that. I was disappointed. I wanted more. And HelloFresh isn't just for dinners. You can shop the HelloFresh market for quick breakfasts, wholesome snacks, and even desserts. HelloFresh's recipes are all delicious. As I said, even kid approved. I love that they send the recipes with easy to follow step-by-step instructions and pictures. Literally impossible to screw up even if you don't cook on the regular. And I also love that they send ripe, just picked produce that travels from the farm to your door in under a week. HelloFresh cuts down on food waste, saves you money in general because you're cutting down on food waste by at least 25% from grocery store shopping. For me, I think it's more. because I hate food waste, and I was always getting a whole thing of like cream, heavy cream, or like sour cream to make a recipe and then not using it, and it goes to waste and I'm throwing it out, and I hate that. And HelloFresh is also 72% cheaper than dining out at a restaurant or grocery shopping. And like I said, I find the produce to be far fresher and way better than anything I've been getting at the store, especially lately. Like, it's really bad out there. I love to cook. It's just about the time that it takes. And with HelloFresh, I've been able to take a much more laid back approach to cooking during the week. And I love getting the whole family involved. It's a nice way to reconnect at the end of the day when we've all gone our separate ways. I'm working, Adam's working, the kids are at school, and at night we can come together, prepare this meal together, and then enjoy it together. So I highly suggest you try HelloFresh out for yourself. And right now I have a great deal. If you go to HelloFresh.com and use my code stephanieharlowe65, you can get 65% off and free shipping. It's a really, really good deal, like the best I've ever seen. Once again, go to HelloFresh.com, use code stephanieharlowe65 to get 65% off and free shipping. If you've been wanting to try HelloFresh out and you've just been holding off, with this discount, now is the time. Thank you so much to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video, and let's dive right in. Eliza Fletcher was born on November 9th, 1987 in Memphis, Tennessee. She graduated from the Hutchinson School in 2006. She played soccer for the University of Memphis, and she got her undergraduate degree in exercise and sports science from Baylor University. Eliza met her husband, Richard, at the Second Presbyterian Church, and on March 8, 2014, they got married, and they went on to have 2 sons, Richard and Harry. Eliza also got her master's degree in teaching from Belmont University, and she was a well-loved kindergarten teacher at St. Mary's Episcopal School.
Miss you, girls. Now you need to let the light shine at your house, and I will see you later. But wait, 1 second. I heard somebody that you might want to meet. Janie, come here, girl. Come here, Janie. Come here, Janie. Hey, look, girls. This is Janie. And Janie is the girl in our house because there's 2 little boys and a Mr. Fletcher, and so there's just me and Jane. And I miss all of you girls so much.
Eliza was also a natural-born athlete. We know she played sports during college, and she was an avid runner who had qualified for the Boston Marathon. And Eliza, her husband, and their 2 sons loved to do outdoor activities together like hiking, biking, water sports, the whole 9 yards. And because she was a teacher and she had to be at work pretty early in the morning, Eliza would get her morning run in even earlier. And at 4 a.m. on the morning of September 2nd, 2022, she left her house and went out for a run on her usual route near the University of Memphis. She was wearing purple running shorts and a pink top, and her blonde hair was pulled back into a ponytail. Eliza was doing something she loved, something that most likely made her feel free and calm and allowed her to start her busy day in the right way. But she never came home from that run. At 6:45 a.m., a resident riding his bike on Central Avenue in Memphis by the University of Memphis, he found a cell phone that belonged to Eliza, as well as a pair of Champion slides. And slides are basically just flip-flops, they're like sandals. And these items were lying in the street. Now, it's not clear how this person knew the phone belonged to Eliza. I'm guessing that the phone wasn't locked, and he was able to get into her contacts and find her husband's number. Or by 6:45, Eliza should have been home already, so her husband Richard was calling her, and this person answered the call. But either way, the biker was able to get these items over to Eliza's husband, who then called the Memphis Police Department at 7:45 a.m. to report Eliza missing and to let them know that he had these items. The Champion slides were then taken to the TBI Crime Lab. TBI stands for Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, for those of you who don't know. They were swabbed for DNA, and the test came back to show that there was DNA on the flip-flops, and the DNA profile was put into CODIS, and there was a hit, and it turned out this DNA profile on the Champion slides belonged to a 38-year-old man named Cleotha Abston, or Cleotha Henderson, as he's also known, and as I'm going to refer to him from now on. So if you hear me say Cleotha or Henderson or Cleotha Henderson, I'm referring to the suspect in this case. Apparently, he was known as Cleotha Apston for the majority of, the initial days after this happened. But when he went to court, he asked the judge to call him Cleotha Henderson. So it looks like he must have gone by both names. I'm not sure what the deal was and why he preferred one name over the other, but it's really not important. You just know me. I'm curious. So once they had this DNA hit, the investigation moved pretty quickly from there, because at that point, law enforcement had already recovered surveillance footage from that morning, which showed Eliza running down a stretch of Central Avenue by the University of Memphis around 4:20 in the morning. The cameras also captured a dark-colored GMC Terrain near 3879 Central Avenue. It passed Eliza and then waited for her to run by it, at which point a man got out of the vehicle and ran aggressively towards Eliza, attempting to force her into the passenger side door of his vehicle. There was a struggle where Eliza fought to not be taken, but in the end, she was overpowered and she was forced into the SUV. After this, the GMC Terrain sat in a nearby parking lot with the driver and Eliza inside for about 4 minutes before driving away. Surveillance also placed this same vehicle in the area of the abduction 24 minutes before Eliza ran by. Now, I want to stop here really quickly because I want to mention something. The fact that this SUV was in the area 24 minutes before Eliza ran by, which means it probably got there a little bit before 4 a.m. because Eliza ran by that area at 4:20. It makes me wonder if he knew she ran this route, if he'd seen her before and he specifically went there that day to catch her while she was on a run. Otherwise, it's like, what are you doing up at this time? I mean, unless this person's an avid drug user and maybe this is what they were doing at that time in that area. Otherwise, it's like, what are you doing in the University of Memphis area before 4 o'clock in the morning, unless you're there for a specific purpose, which is to, catch Eliza Fletcher when she's on her run. Now, the man on the surveillance footage has since been identified as Cleotha Henderson, and not only was his DNA found on those sandals or those slides, but he was also seen on surveillance the night before Eliza's abduction wearing those same sandals at a Malco Theater location on North Germantown Parkway. So once he was identified, police were able to get Henderson's cell phone records, and his cell phone and GPS put him in the location of Eliza's abduction at the time of her abduction. So all the pieces seem to be falling into place, and it's almost as if this dude, Cleotha Henderson, just didn't think about any of this. Like, he didn't think, I'm going to be seen on surveillance, or my cell phone's going to put me in the area, or I left behind my sandals and they have my DNA on it. He was very sloppy in committing this crime, which makes me think it was a crime of opportunity. But then again, he was there waiting for her. So, I'm not exactly sure. And from what we find out, Cleotha Henderson, the suspect, he's not very cooperative with law enforcement. He's not volunteering a ton of information. The next morning, September 3rd, law enforcement located the GMC Terrain in the 5700 block of Waterstone Oak Way, which is reportedly where Henderson's brother, Mario Apston, lived. Now, when the police showed up, Henderson was standing in the doorway of the house. He attempted to run when he saw law enforcement, but he was apprehended, taken into custody, and charged with aggravated kidnapping and tampering with / fabricating evidence. Henderson's brother, Mario, and another witness, they told police that Henderson had been cleaning his GMC Terrain, and he'd also been washing his clothes in the sink. After taking the GMC Terrain into custody, police revealed that Eliza seemed to have suffered a serious injury in that vehicle, leaving blood evidence in the car. They didn't say exactly how much blood, but in order for them to say she had suffered a serious injury in reference to blood, I would assume there'd be a lot. But Cleotha Henderson would not cooperate, and he refused to tell the police where Eliza was, or if she was alive, if she was okay. He wouldn't tell them anything. On Sunday, September 4th, law enforcement officials were seen conducting searches for Eliza in various areas of Memphis. And on that same day, officials added more charges against Cleotha Henderson. Now, these charges were identity theft, theft of property of $1,000 or less, and illegal possession of a credit or debit card. And the new charges were unrelated to Eliza Fletcher's kidnapping and missing person case. Instead, these new charges were connected to a report another woman had filed the week prior. This woman had reported someone using her Cash App card and Wisely card at a gas station without her knowledge. Obviously, it turns out this person who was using her Cash App card and her Wisely card was Cleotha Henderson. On Monday, September 5th, around 5 p.m., the remains of Eliza Fletcher were found discarded and dumped like trash in the back of a vacant and rundown apartment duplex located 7 miles away from where she had been taken and within walking distance of where Henderson's brother Mario lived, and from where Henderson had taken his SUV to clean it out after getting rid of Eliza's body. Now, let me remind you quickly who Eliza was. She was a vibrant young woman, happily married, a loving mother to her 2 young sons, 2 sons who most likely looked at their mother as if she was the most important person in the world, the most beautiful girl they had ever seen, whose hugs and kisses could heal any boo-boo, whether the boo-boo was a scraped knee or hurt feelings. Eliza was a happy, smiling face and a warm figure to several young children, her kindergartners. Every day, she woke up and went into work to make the lives of her students better and happier, and every night, she came home and made the lives of her husband and sons better and happier. She didn't bother anyone. She kept her head down. She minded her own business. She took care of the people around her. She didn't cause any harm to anyone. She only brought positivity to the lives of the people around her. As her obituary said, quote, "Liza was pure of heart and innocent in ways that made her see the very best in everyone she met. To know her was to love her and to be loved by her," end quote. And, that basically means, if you met her, you're going to love her. And if she knows you, she loves you too, because she sees the best in people. And she believes in second chances. She believes in giving everyone the benefit of the doubt. And this woman, who probably had never heard a fly in her life, she was snatched off the street, threatened, and then who knows what else happened to her. Then she was killed, and then her body was thrown away like trash, as if she wasn't the most important person to 2 little boys, to a man who loved her deeply, to everyone who knew her. Just keep that in mind. Tire tracks and the smell of decay led police to the location of Eliza's body, and they also discovered a trash bag which contained purple running shorts, the same running shorts Eliza had been seen wearing when she was running the morning her life was viciously and pointlessly taken from her. Now, at this point that I'm recording this, Eliza's cause of death has not been revealed, which means it also hasn't been revealed what happened to her. But I'm willing to bet, this is just my theory, I'm willing to bet that Eliza was raped, considering her shorts were found away from her body. But I'm going to come back to this point, because there's another reason why I think she was raped, besides the fact that her shorts were found separate from her body. On Tuesday, September 6th, minutes after it was confirmed that the body was in fact Eliza Fletcher, her killer's charges were updated to include murder, premeditated murder, and murder in perpetration of kidnapping. An hour and a half later, a press conference was held to address the updates in the case. Officials would not divulge a possible motive, and police said they hadn't gotten much from the suspect. Shelby County District Attorney General Steve Mulroy claimed there was no reason to believe that this was anything other than an isolated attack by a stranger. And that did take me aback a little bit. It took me by surprise, because what happened to Eliza Fletcher, it's a little bit more than that. It was the attack of a stranger, true, but it was also the attack of a man who had already proven himself to be a violent predator whose criminal record began in 1995 when he was just 11 years old, and he was charged with theft. At the age of 14, Henderson was charged with the rape of an unnamed suspect, so he's 14 years old and raping people already. And between October of 1995 and May of 2000, Henderson was detained another 16 times on charges including rape, aggravated assault, and unlawful possession of a weapon. Court records also reveal that he was a member of the Lemoyne Garden Gangsters, which apparently refers to the now torn-down housing development where the original members grew up. As far as I can tell, the original members consisted of fellows with names such as Dollar Boy, Hitman, Hi Hitler, and Raw B. And apparently they started out as a rap group who called themselves Love Murdering Gangsters and who actually released 2 records entitled Southside Soldiers and It's Still Murda. It's Still Murda was their sophomore release, which was dedicated to one of their members, G-Train, who had been shot dead in 1998 by a rival gang. So, listen, apparently, actually, a lot of people like their music, which is great. But this was a gang, and they did commit violent acts. And I mean, obviously, their members are getting shot dead by other gangs. So there's stuff going on. They're not just happy musicians who are pretending to be tough like Biggie Smalls. I know that a lot of you probably think that's Biggie slander, but it's true. Like, if you look at his childhood, it wasn't as bad as he said it was. And also, I know I'm an East Coast girl, so technically I should be Team Biggie, but I'm Team Tupac for life. But anyways, according to Season 4, Episode 5 of Gangland, the LMG is a toxic mix of poverty and drugs, which is irresistible to young gangsters looking to make a quick buck. So, I mean, it's pretty clear. Cleotha Henderson was a bad kid, and he spent a good amount of time in the juvenile system, which he was released from in the spring of 2000. And then 2 weeks after he was released from the juvenile system, he kidnapped a prominent Memphis attorney named Kemper Durand. On May 24th, 2000, Henderson and an accomplice named Marquette Cobbins approached Durand and forced him at gunpoint into the trunk of his own car. They drove him around for several hours, and then they took him to a gas station ATM and ordered him to take out all of his money so that they could take his money, so they could rob him, right? Luckily, Durand spotted an armed Memphis Housing Authority guard who was at the gas station. Durand yelled out for help, and this caused Henderson and Cobbins to run, but they were apprehended and arrested. Now, Henderson did confess to the crime, but it would take him another 15 months to plead guilty, and he actually turned down a plea deal because he, quote, didn't want to sign for time, end quote. At least that's what he was telling the other guys in jail, which I guess is some sort of like way of acting tough and letting them know, like, you know, I think I can get away with this and I'm not going to admit to doing this. And I don't know. But in 2001, Henderson did plead guilty to aggravated kidnapping and aggravated robbery. And remember, he did this with a gun. So he was sentenced to 24 years in prison. 2 years later, he filed a petition for post-conviction relief, at which point his victim, Kemper Durand, gave a victim impact statement claiming that Cleotha Henderson was ruthless, and this lawyer that was kidnapped, he truly believed that if he had taken the money out of the ATM and given it to Henderson, he would have been killed. You know, if he hadn't been saved by this housing authority guard, he believed he would have been killed. And in a surprising turn, Kemper Durand actually named Henderson, Cleotha Henderson, as the mastermind and testified at the trial of Marquette Cobbins, who was Henderson's accomplice, claiming that Cobbins should get a more lenient sentence because it appeared that he had just been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Durand said that when he was being driven around for hours in the trunk of his own car, he heard Henderson and Cobbins talking, and Cobbins was pleading with Henderson to, you know, stop this whole thing, like stop the car, let Durand out of the trunk, give Durand his keys back so that he and Henderson could just get away and like not have to deal with the repercussions that they would surely face. But Henderson, who once again appeared to be running the show, as the lawyer said, he was the mastermind, he refused to stop. He wanted to keep going. So Henderson was actually released in November of 2020 after only serving roughly 19 years of his 24-year sentence. What does that mean? Well, that means if Cleotha Henderson had served his full time, Eliza Fletcher would still be alive. Not only would Eliza Fletcher still be alive, but another woman would not be the victim of rape today. Less than a week after Eliza's murder, Cleotha Henderson was charged with kidnapping, rape, and unlawful possession of a weapon from a September 21st, 2021 incident involving another woman. Reportedly, Henderson had been a person of interest in this case, but he was not indicted until a year later because this woman's rape kit had not been tested until a year after her attack. The Memphis Police Department confirmed that they had sent the sexual assault kit to the TBI after the incident, and a TBI spokesperson confirmed that the kit was received on September 23, 2021, but the kit was placed in a long line of unknown assailant kits, and as no request had been made by law enforcement for the analysis to be expedited and no suspect information was included in the submission, it didn't get immediate attention. A spokesperson from the TBI said that this kit had been one of 316 submitted from all Shelby County law enforcement agencies, which was the most of any county in Tennessee, and they said, quote, "The Jackson Crime Lab's average turnaround time for SAKs ranged from approximately 33 weeks to 49 weeks between September of 2021 and August of 2022. The length of time to work these cases is attributed to the workload of the 4 scientists assigned to this unit. These forensic scientists work every biological evidence submission, ranging from homicides to SAKs to robberies, assaults, and break-ins," end quote. Now, the TBI said it will rush a test when requested by the police to do so, which was the case in the DNA from the sandals found near Eliza's cell phone, but this was not done for the 2021 sexual assault kit. The kit was eventually pulled from cold storage along with 19 other kits on June 24, 2022, and the first results were received on August 29, 2022. When the DNA from the 2021 rape case was entered into CODIS, it returned a match for Henderson, and the TBI reported this to the Memphis Police Department on September 5th, just 3 days after Eliza's murder. So, if Cleotha Henderson had served his full time for kidnapping somebody and, robbing them at gunpoint, if he'd served his full time for that, this woman would not have been raped and Eliza Fletcher would be alive. But that also means that even if he hadn't served that full time and he had, raped this woman in 2021, if that sexual assault kit had been processed just even a month sooner, theoretically, Henderson would have been arrested for rape. Hopefully, who knows? Who knows these days? But hopefully he would have been arrested for rape, and he would not have been free to walk the streets to kidnap and murder Eliza Fletcher. So we have, in my opinion, 2 missed opportunities to save women from being the victims of this horrific person. We're going to come back to this point in a moment, but I would also like to mention that Cleotha Henderson's brother, Mario, was also in court on September 7th when Henderson's new charges were added, but he was in a separate courtroom for a separate matter. Reportedly, the Memphis Police Department said that 36-year-old Mario Apston had been charged earlier in the week with possession of a controlled substance with the intent to manufacture and sell fentanyl, possession with intent to manufacture and sell heroin, and for being in possession of a firearm during the commission of a dangerous felony. So, we got a couple straight-laced, rule-following brothers here, don't we? We just got a couple of good boys here, doing their societal duties. And I wonder if Henderson's brother was caught with all of this stuff because Henderson drove his terrain to Mario's house and was cleaning it out, and then the police tracked him there, and then the police maybe went inside Mario's house to get evidence about Henderson washing his clothes in the sink, and that's when they saw, the heroin and the fentanyl and the weapon, which I assume was a gun. I don't know, but either way, this is definitely a dysfunctional family. Cleotha Henderson's lawyer, Jennifer Case, tried unsuccessfully to get herself removed from this case, most likely, just in my opinion, because she didn't want to represent this guy who is, let's just say it, a scumbag. A total scumbag. And, she said there was a conflict of interest because her office had represented Henderson on a separate legal matter in the early 2000s, but the judge was like, sorry, you still have to represent him, probably because, honestly, with all the charges that Cleotha Henderson had racked up since he was 11, there probably wasn't a damn lawyer in Memphis who hadn't represented him at some point in his life. So Jennifer Case had to represent him, and she dove in, trying to do the best she could for her client because that is her job. And she tried to get a gag order, making an argument that the Memphis police chief, C.J. Davis, had called her client a dangerous predator, which, she did because he is.
While the outcome of this investigation is not what we hoped for, we are nonetheless pleased to remove this dangerous predator off the streets of Memphis.
She said what she said, and she's not sorry about it. And I'm not sorry she said it. And honestly, I understand Jennifer Case, the lawyer, she has to do her job. She's trying to do something here, but it's just the most ridiculous thing. The most ridiculous thing to even argue. How dare you refer to my client as a dangerous predator? Your client sat in his car and waited for a young woman to jog by, a young woman who was just trying to get her exercise in before she went and taught her kindergarten class. He waited for her, laid in wait like a predator, and then attacked her and killed her violently, like a violent predator. So, come on. What did you think any of us out here were like, oh, this dude's okay, until we heard the police chief call him a violent predator, and then we were like, maybe not. Come on. After the press conference, Eliza's family released a statement saying, quote, "We are heartbroken and devastated by this senseless loss. Liza was such a joy to so many, her family, friends, colleagues, students, parents, members of her Second Presbyterian Church congregation, and everyone who knows her. Now it's time to remember and celebrate how special she was and to support those who cared so much for her. We appreciate all the expressions of love and concern we have received. We are grateful beyond measure to local, state, and federal law enforcement for their tireless efforts to find Liza and to bring justice to the person responsible for this horrible crime. We hope that everyone, including media representatives, understand the need for the family to mourn in privacy without outside intrusion during this painful time," end quote. And, I think Eliza's family, they definitely seem to be good people. Her husband looked like an absolute wreck, of course. And, it pisses me off, but literally within days, within a day of her going missing, there was people on Twitter and social media, looking into her husband Richard's background and posting, articles and stuff and saying, oh, this is suspicious. Her grandfather had a lot of money and he recently died. So, her husband stood to gain something from this, just absolutely ridiculous. I know that it's usually the husband, okay? I know that it's usually the intimate partner. I get it. But at the same time, it was so early, and he had done nothing to deserve that. It breaks my heart. The internet can be an amazing place. It can also be a completely toxic, disgusting place. On Friday, September 8th at 4:20 a.m., hundreds of people gathered at the location where Eliza Fletcher had been abducted to finish the run that she was not able to complete. And I have to say, I often, explain to you guys that I am a very emotional person. I just don't like to show my emotions. It's just how I, kind of grew up. So I keep a lot inside, and I use humor a lot to hide my real emotions. But when I was reading about this particular part of the case, I got a little teary-eyed. I did. I may have even just straight up cried, at my desk in the middle of the day, alone, just crying at my desk in front of my computer. So it's very heartwarming. In a Facebook event titled "Let's Finish Liza's Run," it is explained that they would be running 8.2 miles along the path that Eliza normally took. Our goal is to stand up for the women in the Mid-South and emphasize that women should be able to safely run any time of day, the event proclaimed. Runners in Boston, Philly, and other cities around the country also completed their own run in Eliza's name, and a group of women in Florida posted on Facebook, quote, "Dear Eliza Fletcher, we are from Florida. We've never met you. We never ran with you. But you were a mother, a professional, and a runner, just like us. And because of that, we woke up at 4 a.m. today to run in your honor. Rest in peace," end quote. So, yeah. It's so sweet. So I do have some things to talk about. First, I want to address the many people, women specifically, who have come out in the wake of this and stated how, it's not right that women are in danger outside of their homes. And I totally agree. Listen, totally agree. In fact, Derek and I are covering the case of Tara Calico on Crime Weekly right now. And I mentioned to him that it's really not fair that men can go out running or biking and they don't have to worry about being the target of an attack. I mean, they don't have to worry as much, right? Men are still attacked from time to time. Like, that is absolutely true. But as I explained to Derek, it's usually because they're getting mugged, you know? Like, that's usually why. It's like, just give me your money, blah, blah, blah. And honestly, if that's all I was afraid of losing when I left my house, I'd roll the dice. You know, if someone comes up to me with a weapon and says, give me your money, they're getting my money, man. They're getting everything. I'm going to be like, you want my rings? You want my necklace? I have a Lululemon bra on. That's probably worth something. Like, you can have it all. Just leave me alone. But what women have to worry about losing is so much more, because what men like Cleotha Henderson want from women is not their money, it's their bodies and then their lives. So I want to talk about this because it is important, and I feel I need to clear up a little what I believe to be fog in the narrative, some, not so clear things about this narrative. And it might be a hot take. I don't see why it would be, but I'm going to give my opinion regardless because I feel like it's very important to talk about this and to be very clear when we're having a conversation like this. And in order to kickstart this conversation, I want to read to you a little passage from an op-ed that was published in the Washington Post, written by Melissa Sullivan in the wake of Eliza Fletcher's death. She writes, quote, "I've been forced off the Mount Vernon Trail in broad daylight by an aggressive male cyclist. I've been tailed by an Uber driver, just in case you get tired and need a ride, despite my repeatedly declining his assistance. A man once exposed himself and attempted to ejaculate on me as I ran on the sidewalk in the Navy Yard. I've been catcalled, confronted, cornered, threatened, and followed more times than I care to remember. Do not run at dawn or dusk. Cover up. Only run in a group. Do not post your run route. Change your run route. Try to de-escalate the situation. Do not break down. Leave one earbud out. Always be aware of your surroundings. Shouldn't you run on a treadmill instead? I'm tired of being told to register for self-defense class. I am over second-guessing my hairstyle on the way out the door because a ponytail makes it much easier for an attacker to grab me. I'm fed up with the well-meaning but unsolicited advice to carry pepper spray, a flashlight, and a whistle. Frankly, it seems not to matter what I do. What the thousands of other women runners who've been harassed and confronted while running do. Every time we go out on a run, there's a chance we will not finish the run. A few years ago, a Runner's World survey found that 43% of women at least sometimes experience harassment on the run, compared with just 4% of men. Like so many other women, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm exhausted by the expectation that the onus to prevent the harassment of intimidation of female runners should be, and always will be on us, not on a culture that normalizes the objectification, degradation, and subjugation of women, not on the broken justice system, not on the urban planners who fail to provide sufficient lighting, jogging paths, and other safe public spaces to exercise." End quote. And I agree with her completely on all points. I too am angry. I too am frustrated. I too understand the fear of being a woman and venturing out into the world alone. But I also understand the reality of the situation. What is it that people say? The best offense is a good defense? I've never personally been much of a runner, but I used to love riding my bike, especially this time of the year when the humidity and the heat go down and there's like a bite of fall in the air. But about 4 years ago, I had to stop riding my bike alone because it seemed like no matter where I was experiencing many of the same situations that Melissa Sullivan described, which made me feel unsafe. People following me, catcalling. One dude, I remember I was on a bike path, he jumped out of the bushes, in front of me on the path so that I had to swerve. And I think he was hoping I swerved off the path and fell off my bike. Thankfully, I didn't. Now, I will admit, no one has ever tried to ejaculate on me as I rode by. There's no words for that nonsense. However, unlike Melissa Sullivan, I'm not annoyed or angered by advice from others or people giving me tips to stay safe out there because, let's be honest, I need tips to stay safe out there. We all need them. I understand that I should be able to do whatever I want and go wherever I want and be and feel completely safe all the time. That would be lovely, but it's not a reality. And the world doesn't function for my benefit. In fact, no one. I feel like no one can really feel or be safe all the time. So if you're a runner, and especially a female runner or a biker like I was, you should be taking precautions. You should maybe avoid going out alone when it's dark out and somebody can attack you under the cover of darkness. You should bring pepper spray or mace if you have it. You should only have one earbud in so you can hear what's going on around you and have a heads up if someone's following you. I think everybody should always be aware of their surroundings, man, woman, or child. That's just normal, be safe out there tips. You should try to run in groups or with a friend. We tell young girls on college campuses to use the buddy system when walking around, especially at night. And we do that because the incidence of rape is very high on college campuses. But at this point, the danger of being attacked isn't any less on the streets of any larger major city than it is on a college campus. We shouldn't have to do that, but I would rather women take some precautions rather than have them go out and say, I shouldn't have to do any of this shit, and then become the victims that they are at a higher risk of becoming if they're alone. It's not their fault that they were attacked. We have to really start distinguishing between, victim blaming and saying hey, if you do these things, you will be safer. We know that you're safer driving in a car if you have your seatbelt on. But if somebody didn't have their seatbelt on or forgot to put their seatbelt on and then they died because they got in a car crash, nobody would be out there being like, well, you deserved it. You deserved that because you didn't put your seatbelt on and you knew it was more dangerous for not wearing your seatbelt. No, people wouldn't say that. They would just come out in the wake of that and be like, if this person had had their seatbelt on, there would have been a better chance that this accident wouldn't have killed them. That's not blaming the victim. That's just saying these are safety measures and precautions, and if you take those, you will be safer. And there does seem to be a little bit of a disconnect right now because a lot of people, they want it all. They want a perfect world. There's been huge strides made in criminal reform and advocacy for lighter sentencing and for bail reform, a lot of catch and release happening. And while that's all nice and fair in theory, it's also putting tons of violent criminals out on the streets with no measures in place to make sure they aren't reoffending. And in fact, many of them do reoffend. I cannot tell you how many cases I see in a given day where someone is arrested and they'd just been let out of jail or they'd just been let out of prison or they were out on bail for some other offense or they'd already served several years and within a week of getting out, they're up to their old tricks. When I give you guys cases, that's 1% of these true crime cases that I'm reading because every day I have all these news apps sending me alerts and stuff. I'm looking at all of these cases. Probably in a given day, I'm looking at 15 to 20 cases, and then I'll mark ones that, I think are evolving and I can check back in on. But there is tons and tons of this happening. People going to jail and getting let out and then reoffending. And a lot of violent criminals are serving much less time than they were sentenced, which I guess would be okay if they had been rehabilitated, but there's also no rehabilitation happening when they're behind bars. So oftentimes when they get out, they are still bad, and most times they're even worse. Now, I'm a huge supporter of prison reform. I'm not a supporter of shorter sentences and bail reform for violent repeat offenders, okay? I would just say that. But prison reform, yes. And this is just my opinion. Don't come for me, but to me, in my opinion, if you rape someone, you should never see the light of day again. If you purposely take someone's life, you should never see the light of day again. I think I've been very clear about my stance on that. If you have done either of these things, to me, you've proven that you have no place in a functioning society. I think these things are done by people who are already not right. They have something wrong with them. If you are able to purposely and knowingly rape or murder someone, you are not a good person. I don't think you ever were, and I don't think you ever will be. And I do think that committing both these acts leaves a lasting mark on someone, and not a good one, especially if they've gotten away with it or they didn't have strong repercussions. I don't feel like you can do those two things to another human being and not have a huge, gaping black hole where your soul should be. So no, I don't really want those kinds of people walking around with the rest of us. The rest of us who follow the rules and, understand that not only is it legally wrong to rape and murder, but it's morally wrong too. So we need to start putting these violent offenders behind bars and keeping them there. if you want to feel safer running and walking and biking outside alone. That needs to happen. You can't have it both ways. I was just watching CNN the other day, not purposely. It was just on. I hate mainstream media, but it was just on. I was at my mom's house, and there's a guy running for some political office in Pennsylvania, and he's talking about like, oh, we need to get people out of prisons. Like, we should cut down on the prisons. Like, we need to get them out of there sooner. That's the only way they're going to get better. Like, no. Just putting them in prison and then letting them out, that's not going to get them better. You have to do stuff with them when they're in prison, and I don't hear any talk about that, really. And then some other guy on CNN was like, this is ridiculous. Like, crime is on the rise everywhere. What's happening? We can't just keep letting these people out of prison and out of jail. Like, I agree. For once, I agree with the mainstream media because as far as I'm concerned, it's pretty like obvious, right? It's pretty cut and dry. Why this would be a hot take, why this would be controversial, I don't know. If you break the law, and I mean, when I say break the law, I mean like a violent crime, like you violently hurt somebody, you rape somebody, you kill somebody, you need to go, man. You need to go. You forfeited your right to be a part of this society now. And this society can't function with you in it. So if you're a woman who knows and recognizes that it's unfair that as a woman you are not safe outside of your house sometimes, especially in big cities with a lot of crime, you also can't be a woman who's out there supporting like catch and release and, you know, shorter sentences and bail reform and things like that. You really can't. Not for violent crimes, at least. And I know people are going to come for me and be like, what about this? And no, obviously, there's certain crimes that, in my opinion, are victimless crimes, you know, drug offenses, if you're like robbing a Walgreens or something, like obviously if nobody got hurt, then yes, I think you can be rehabilitated. But like I said, I feel like once you viciously take somebody's life or viciously assault somebody in a sexual manner, like you have lessened your humanity, and I don't want you around. But I also don't want to worry every time I leave the house alone, you know, but I know that I do have to worry. And I would rather take some precautions than not make it home to my kids. That being said, I could take every single precaution there is and still become a victim of violent crime. That's once again just the reality of the situation, which is why I've stopped biking alone. You know, like I could bring pepper spray and mace. I could have my earbuds out. I could make sure I'm paying attention to everything. I could not go out, you know, at dark times. I could ride in broad daylight. And I could still end up being hurt by somebody just because they felt like they wanted to do that to me. That's the world we live in. And honestly, I think it's the world we've created over decades of societal decay. This is going to sound so lame and like a PSA or something from like the 1950s, but bear with me. Like, I promise I'll make sense to you. There's too many parents choosing drugs and alcohol over their children. Too many parents both having to work outside of the home and work for long hours simply to make ends meet. And when they come home, they are far too tired to even positively interact with their children. This has left generations of children to raise themselves. And then with the rise of the internet, all right, which, like I said, can be great, but can also be toxic, children began to get shaped by whatever group of individuals they gravitated towards online. And usually, these people, they were also plagued with the same issues, the same feelings of isolation, loneliness, disconnection, hopelessness, bitterness, anger, desperation. Trust me. I know. I found my own emo internet groups early on, all right? Probably before most of you were even on the internet. I was on the internet, dial-up, AOL, and finding some crazy places on the World Wide Web with people that I thought were like my people, like, oh, these people are like me. They understand me. But no, it wasn't good. And, you know, I do agree that many people can find groups that are positive for them. And even for me early on, I did think that some of those groups and some of those people provided sanctuary, a place to like air out my grievances, a place to, you know, feel heard and to feel like I wasn't alone. But after not too long, it also just made me feel worse because, you know, I thought maybe this is just how it is. Maybe this is all there is. Maybe everybody just feels like shit all the time. Maybe everybody's depressed all the time. Maybe no one's happy. And what I needed to do was to be talking to people who had their shit together, right? And who maybe had gone through what I'd gone through, but gotten out on the other side, so that they could provide me with some hope, hope that I too could get to the other side and get my shit together. Whereas in the groups I was in, it was just a bunch of people who were all in the same place as me, which wasn't a good place. And we were just commiserating with each other. And it was all problems, 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 no solutions. So that's not healthy. And listen, it happened when I was young. I mean, I was like 17, 18 when this was going down. It happened when my oldest daughter was young. She's 21 now. And it's still happening. I can still see it on the internet today with my younger kids. Not that I let them go in these groups, but I'm seeing this stuff. It's like those alpha male groups. I understand that men need a place on the internet to go where they feel heard. But also, once you get into that corner of the internet, you get stuck there and you're in an echo chamber. So all you're hearing is other men who are kind of angry at women and who, talk about high value men and women should just be prizes to be won and fruit to be picked. The Andrew Tate crowd, right? That's not healthy. That's not healthy. But if people don't feel like they have somebody in real life, if they don't feel like a part of their community, then they will find their own community, and usually it's a less diverse community. Now, does the justice system need to be reformed? Of course. I've been saying that forever. I have a t-shirt in my merch store that says our justice system is broken. I believe our justice system, our legal system, are very, very broken. I have a firm stance on this. I do not think drug offenses should warrant jail time. But of course, there are exceptions. That's the thing. We're not really looking at things on a case-by-case basis. We're making these wide, broad, sweeping bail reforms and criminal justice reforms, and we're not looking at things on a case-by-case basis. If a person who's using drugs has a meth lab in their house and that meth lab explodes and kills their family or their neighbors, lock them up, throw away the key, man. I got no problem with that. If a person's selling hard drugs to children on the streets and these kids are overdosing and dying, that warrants some jail time. I don't think that petty robberies warrant a huge amount of jail time. If it's repeated, then maybe 6 months. Give this person some job training, help them write a resume, train them on how to do well at a job interview, find them job interviews, give them hope, show them that they have worth, and then see how they do once they've learned that they can contribute to their society and their families and themselves in a positive way. Violent crimes, rape and murder, you know how I feel. These people should never get out. That's just how I feel. I'll never feel otherwise, okay? Never. You will never convince me, so don't bother trying. And honestly, if I had it my way, anyone who abuses children or animals, they should also get locked up forever and never get out. But, I don't make the rules, and some of you might be happy about that. I just think we need to be realistic, because if we want this world that is completely safe for everyone, it's gonna mean some drastic changes that I don't think people are willing to really go all in for. It's going to mean a ton of government overreach. It's going to mean fascism, basically. It's going to be a government that tells people how they can behave and what they can do and things to a drastic way. Think Handmaid's Tale. But I will say, if you want to look at it as the responsibility of the individual, which I do, I don't think that being a good person should be the responsibility of your government. I think it rests with the individual. Then there is something we can do, and those changes need to start at home. Like I said, I know it sounds so corny, man. It sounds so corny. I feel like a 1950s infomercial wife. But listen, it's true. Now, is there going to be the random psychopath here and there who had a great childhood and was raised by great parents and got tucked into bed every night? Sure, yes. But generally, children who are loved, children who are cared for, children who are respected and taught to respect themselves, children who are taught empathy and responsibility and shown how to love themselves and value human life, they don't grow up to be out there snatching women off the street and murdering them. I hate to make it seem so simple, but love is really the answer. And we have too many people who grew up without that. Feeling you have a relevancy and purpose in your community amongst your people, that's the answer. And we have too many people who feel small, worthless, and aimless because the world has become so big, right? And we've relied on technology to do so much for us that humans can really fall into the trap of feeling that they don't have a purpose, that no one needs them, that they don't positively contribute to the world around them. but they do. That's the thing. We all need more human connection. And listen, I am guilty of it as well. I stay in my house. I don't see anybody. I don't even talk to my neighbors. But in my house, we have a happy house. We bring friends and family in. We're playing games. We're always singing, playing music. We're reading all the time. We're learning things all the time. We're raising the chickens. We're growing stuff in our greenhouse. We're learning and educating through all of that. So for me, like, that's my little tribe. That's my little niche. I have a very happy ecosystem here. And I think I'm raising my kids right with love and self-respect and education. But humans do need to feel that they are integral to their tribes, to their communities and their families. They need to understand that they are a piece of a machine that doesn't work if they aren't there. Everyone needs a place to feel important and necessary. Everyone has a place where they can feel important and necessary. You know, they just need to realize that. They need to understand that so that they can feel that. We can all acknowledge that a society where women and children can't feel safe walking down the street is broken. But the fix isn't really placed at the feet of our government or our leaders. It's placed at the feet of the leaders of the home. The solution starts at home, in childhood, when a person's taught how to be a decent human being. And like I said, it sounds simple. Love is the answer. You know, making somebody feel like they are important is the answer. And it sounds easy, but it's not easy, right? It's not easy because we have so many people who have been caught in generational trauma, generational, violence. They've been raised like this. Their parents were raised like this. And it's just so hard to break free from that. Believe me, I see it in my extended family a lot. And I always say, like, oof, how did this happen? And how can they be fixed? Especially by the time they're adults, they usually can't be. So I don't know what the answer is, but I know that you guys listening will understand what I'm saying. And maybe, you do this at home and you pass it on to others. And maybe we spread the word, and one by one is good fishing. That's what my uncle always says. One by one is good fishing. That means, like, you just stay in your lane, do what you can in your bubble, in your little ecosystem, and hopefully it makes a bigger change. I don't know, nourish the fruit before it dies on the vine. And listen, Memphis, Tennessee definitely has a crime problem. And they have had a crime problem for a while. It's been on the rise. In 2022, just in 2022, which we're not even done with yet, there were 100 kidnappings in Memphis.
Last week, a mother and her 1-year-old were taken by 2 men spotted on Target surveillance cameras. They were forced to withdraw $800 from an ATM before they were released. One man was arrested today. The other is still at large. And last week, a father stopping to help a man involved in an accident was carjacked with his 2, 5, and 6-year-olds still inside.
Additionally, residents of the neighborhood around where Eliza's body was left, they've been demanding that the house she was found behind, as well as similar abandoned and desolate properties in that area, they need to either be kept up, fixed, repaired, the lawn mowed, or knocked down completely so that it's not as easy for people to hide in or behind the houses and do illegal activities.
Well, people we talked to believe these neglected properties can draw crime. Take a look here. You can see just how high this grass is in some parts right in front of this house. In some areas, 7 feet tall or even higher. And people we talked to, they want it gone. Tonight, the memorial outside of the South Memphis home where investigators discovered Eliza Fletcher's body grows. Visitors from across the city stopped by, heartbroken for the young mother's family.
Her personally, but it still impacts us because we have kids, we have grandkids, and we want the best for them, and it's just a sad, sad day.
As they come by the house, they're not only met by tragedy, but this large lot of overgrown weeds.
I done called ever since the 6th, 23, 22 on this grass over here, and I can't get nobody to respond.
This woman who lives nearby didn't feel comfortable being identified, but says she's been calling the city of Memphis and Shelby County nonstop about the issue. She believes the tall weeds made the home at the corner of Victor and East Person a better hiding spot.
Because if you coming down Person, it's hard for you to see that house.
Next door to the abandoned home are 2 other abandoned homes with overgrown lots. She says the blight causes concern for the neighborhood especially the elderly.
They don't feel safe because they ain't got no visual of what's going on around them because the grass so tall.
But there is another issue which contributed to that scumbag Henderson being allowed to victimize yet another person. If he'd been arrested for that 2021 rape, he would not have been there to hurt Eliza. But in this country, someone is sexually assaulted every 68 seconds. And we have an issue called the backlog. And it is currently one of the biggest obstacles in prosecuting perpetrators of sexual violence. First, it's very important to understand how much bravery and courage it takes to come forward after you've been raped or sexually assaulted. I am hoping that the majority of the people watching this video have not been in that position. Unfortunately, I think that it's probably the other way around. That probably a lot of people watching this have been sexually assaulted or raped. So you know, you've already been violated, and now you have to go tell the police what happened and tell them in detail what happened. You have to relive it. And then you have to open yourself up to what's going to feel like another huge violation, which is the medical exam. Even though this exam is meant to help you and you have to keep reminding yourself of that, so soon after what happened to you, it's going to be tough. A rape survivor is going to have the police and a medical professional photograph their body, swab their body, and then conduct an invasive physical exam, usually an internal exam, in the hopes of retrieving the DNA of their attacker. This exam can take up to 4 to 6 hours, and it's best if it happens directly after the assault. That means no time to shower, no time to settle in your brain and in your heart what happened, no time to process what's happened to you. And you're going right in and people are probing at you and basically treating you like a piece of evidence because your body is a piece of evidence at that point. The physical evidence collected from your body will then be stored in a sexual assault evidence kit and sent off to a lab for analysis. So how would you feel after going through all of that and finding out or knowing that your kit might not even get looked at for months, sometimes even years, and your attacker is still walking around out there? Maybe you're going to run into that person. Maybe they're doing it to someone else. Natasha Alexenko was raped at gunpoint in New York City in 1993. She underwent the physical exam, and then unbeknownst to her, the kit sat in a Manhattan storage facility for almost 10 years. And this has happened to thousands and thousands and thousands of women. Not just women, rape victims, rape survivors. In the last decade, this terrible practice has come to the light, and it's truly chilling to think how many people got away with horrendous and violent crimes simply because some people were too lazy, or they didn't take the crime seriously enough, or there weren't enough resources or enough trained people to run the tests. So the backlog refers to the thousands and thousands of untested rape kits that were, discovered in each state and are still being discovered in each state. This can happen, this kind of can build up from two situations. One, the evidence was never even sent from the police to the crime lab, which is, the situation of being lazy or not taking the crime seriously enough. And two, the kits make it to the crime labs, but they were never tested. In some instances, the volume of untested DNA evidence has outpaced the resources to test, process, and profile samples in crime labs. And that's why I'm such a huge, huge supporter of, having more people trained in forensics so that they can do this. Because often it's a case of not having enough manpower, not having enough people to run these tests and process them. As they were saying at the TBI, they have 4 people working, and these 4 people are handling all the physical evidence from murders, rapes, break-ins, assaults, all of that. That's not enough people. That's not enough people. There's a lot of nonprofits who focus on this, and one of my favorites is endthebacklog.org. They've been working to fix this, and they've actually been trying to keep, the states accountable. So they've been tracking the progress of all 50 states to see who and who is not enacting reform. And there's 3 categories which you could be in if you're in a state in the United States. You could be full reform status, some reform status, or no reform status. And if a state has reached full reform status, which a lot of them have, actually, I'm pretty impressed, it means they've achieved all 6 pillars of reform. Now, these 6 pillars of reform are, having a statewide inventory, which means the states must have comprehensive knowledge of the number and location of untested kits. And the number and location of all kits connected to a reported crime must be publicly available so that the public can also see, which is also holding the states accountable. 2, test backlogged kits. So the states have to have tested all backlog kits connected to a reported crime. They must have legislation requiring it or have a plan in place with deadlines to identify and submit these kits to a lab and test them. 3, they have to be testing new kits. States must have established deadlines for submitting all newly collected kits connected to a reported crime to a lab and testing them. That means when a test comes in, it's not like, oh, you go to the back of the line, we get to you when we get to you. It's like this test needs to be like analyzed by this point, which is a great policy. Also, the states must implement tracking systems. So the states must establish an electronic rape kit tracking system or have a plan or deadline for implementation of that electronic tracking system in place. Also, state law must grant survivors the right to receive information about their cases and the status and location of their kits. So now the public knows, the victim knows, or the survivor knows, and now they can also hold the states accountable. And finally, the 6th and last pillar is fund reform, which means that states must allocate or secure funding to help implement these pillars with an emphasis on testing backlogged and future kits. At this time, Texas, New Mexico, Utah, Nevada, Idaho, Oregon, Washington State, Montana, Michigan, Illinois, Kentucky, Indiana, Virginia, Maryland, Massachusetts, and Connecticut have reached full reform. So if you live in those states, at least you can feel proud that your lawmakers are doing something right. And maybe your taxpayer dollars are going to something that you actually support. But if you live in the 2 states, which are at the status of no reform, that's Maine and Mississippi, you might want to start writing some letters and making some noise because that's bullshit. You know what I mean? That's ridiculous. And Tennessee, where Memphis is, they have some reform. And that's where a lot of the other states are kind of hanging out in the some reform area, which is my state, New York, is some reform, which I'm not surprised by, actually, but that's a story for another day. So we may have learned something from this video, or maybe you didn't. Maybe you disagree with me on everything I've said, and you truly believe that we can live in a society that both goes easy on criminals and where women can feel safe alone on the streets of cities. If you do believe that, agree to disagree, we can still be friends, but I would like you to show me your work. Show me how you did the math, how you think that both of those things can exist at once. Anyways, although we may have gotten some insight from this case, we're still left with the fact that a lovely young woman was ripped from this world and stolen from her husband and children. Like I said, I was very moved when I saw all the people from around the country completing Eliza's run. It did choke me up a bit. And Eliza's family is very grateful for the support they've been getting too. They said, quote, "The outpouring of love and grief would have surprised Liza, who never thought or acted as if she was something special, though she certainly was," end quote. Each one of us is special. Each one of us has something to offer. And the hope is that each one of us can recognize that. So we can feel the joy that Eliza felt from being a mother, from being a wife, from being a teacher, from getting to share her life with the people who she loved. Simple things that if you're a truly happy person, you can find joy in. You don't need anything crazy. You don't need millions of dollars. You don't need, private jets and Lululemon sports bras, like all of these things that marketing and advertising would make you think that you need to be happy. And listen, I'm not judging you, man. We've all fallen into that trap. I truly do believe that I need Lululemon sports bras to be happy because they offer amazing support, but that's a whole different story for a different day. What I'm trying to say is all that other stuff, money, travel, Lululemon sports bras, all that other stuff can just be icing on the cake if you are a person who realizes that you are special and important. If each person could feel that joy, that completion, that purpose, I truly do believe there would be less of them out there hurting others. I really do believe that. Hurt people, right? Happy people just focus on trying to stay happy. Truly happy people, they got their eye on the prize. They're looking straight ahead. They're not looking at other people. They're not gossiping about other people. They're not, trying to tear anyone else down. It's sad that somebody like Eliza, who seemed to really be living a life that she was proud of, was stolen from this world by somebody who was living a life that he clearly could not have been proud of. And you know, if we keep letting this happen, the bad people are going to outnumber the good people. And then we're going to be in a real bad situation. But all my love and thoughts to Eliza's family, who I'm sure are going to need them, because we always forget that there's more than one victim in all of these cases. And the people left behind are the ones that suffer the most. So thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. Check out my description box. There's links in there. There's links in there for HelloFresh. There's also links in there for endthebacklog.org, so you can look into it. You can see how you can help, what you can do. You can get more information. I've also linked to my coffee company, Criminal Coffee Company. I truly believe it is the best coffee in the world. And with the prices that Starbucks has been charging lately, like, are they serious? Are they? I would rather drink my own coffee all day, any day, especially because I'm not trying to go broke buying Starbucks coffee anymore. So anyways, check out my coffee company, Criminal Coffee Company. Check out my podcast, Crime Weekly, which I co-host every single week with retired police detective Derek Levasseur. Like I said earlier in the episode, we've just started the Tara Calico case, which is a huge mystery, huge big-time mystery that's been bothering me forever. So check that out. That's probably not going to be out for a couple of weeks, because we recorded ahead of time for that because I'm going out of town. But regardless, it's coming up, so keep an eye out for it. All the links to that in their description. You can listen on podcast platforms or you can watch on YouTube. Also, don't forget to follow me on social media, Twitter and Instagram. You know, even if you want to follow me just to tell me how stupid I am, go ahead and do that. That way I know who you are and I can block you and I don't ever have to see you again. I mean it. But in all seriousness, thank you guys so much for being here. I really love and appreciate you guys. I don't tell you enough, because, you know, keep my emotions inside. But I do want you guys all to know that. And I want to go live soon. I always say I want to go live, but I'm so tired at the end of the night. I want to go live soon, and I want to talk to you guys and open some, you know, subscriber mail and just chat. And maybe we can talk about this case a little bit and we can kind of, I don't know, brainstorm together. But anyways, just check the description box for all those links. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to share this video if you think it's worth sharing. Hit like if you liked it. Stay kind, stay beautiful, please stay safe. And I will see you guys very, very soon.
Straight down, and that river runs deep. The mountains get steep, and the voices getting too loud. All these feelings I've buried, it's looking like a cemetery. They're coming back from the grave, calling out my name. Better say a Hail Mary. Well, you don't know how deep it goes until it's getting you slowly. It's all you got to let it go. I got blood on the strings.